In 2018, Jake found a creative breakthrough with colourful self-portraiture during his honours year at COFA. But pirates, princesses, sailors and other queer tropes were performatively expressed in cel-shaded TEXTA linework, as Jake challenged masculine roles and found love for his body. What drew you to textures, and what does textures as a medium kind of unleash for you?
Textures, I find, really, even though I don't want to be a comic book artist anymore, I still really enjoy parts of it, and I find that using textures and just sitting and colouring.
I think everyone says there's like a satisfying noise that comes
It
with
is.
it.
There's a noise, there's the smell, and there's just it's like half painting, half drawing almost. The way I colour them now, I used to get very stuck in details with colouring and things like that. I think that started with charcoal drawings back in the day, obviously, and graphite, but I find with cel shading, you can really simplify them into shapes almost.
For your Ben Street Journal thing, it did show you playing video games. Like it does like the cel shading of video games and that kind of element.
Yes.
Also like virtual worlds, things like that, come into play in your work.
Yeah, there was a few artworks around that time period before lockdown, or was it after? I don't quite remember. That kind of focused on me and my love for video games and cartoons and things like that back in the day. Well, not even back in the day now. Still love video games. But because that was during lockdown, right? So during lockdown, I was the only one in my share house that wasn't working at the time, because my work shut down before the lockdowns even started. I feel like all my making during the lockdown period and the Ben Street period was quite heavily just things I enjoyed and just having fun with creating again, rather than getting quite stuck on creating for purpose, which I struggled with for a while after uni.
Yeah, and I think like the lockdown period, you know, what did kind of open up creative avenues for everyone. I think TikTok was one of the big kind of openers that happened there. But your practice in Juicy did a reference to that, which is the Pamela 1 dance trend that came out. I was looking at the YouTube comments and there seems to be like a lot of love, but it's very much like an earworm. It burrows into you and just
100%.
like very much gets into you. So tell me a little bit about that and choosing the various stages of 1, 2, 3, 4 as part of a series of drawings, because they were very fun, and like movement, especially like indicated in this work here, is another aspect to which you begin to follow through with.
I don't entirely remember what year it was. I was very young when that happened, because obviously growing up Filipino, it's a Filipino song. I've got a lot of extended family here in Australia. And even in school, a lot of Filipino friends. Our school was very heavily Filipino populated. And it was the kind of thing that everybody knew the song to. Everyone kind of knew parts of the dance. It was a weird thing of everyone kind of doing it and knowing it, but at the same time everyone making fun of you for doing it and knowing it, even though we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, because the vocals are a bit like kid-like, but that's kind of what makes them really fun. Like
they're wild. It's truly... I did forget the dance over the years. It's been like 2 decades, but
Well, it seems like
never entirely forgot the song. It would always kind of just come up here or there.
Well, in the TikTok
mind.
trend, it seems as though like there was little flourishes added to the dance as well. Like there's some more maybe salacious or naughty aspects to the dance as well, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
But it's weird. A lot of the Filipino dance things were kind of, because originally I wanted to do for that Juicy exhibition not just the Pamela 1 dance. I wanted to do the spaghetti dance. I wanted to do the ocho ocho, which are the classic Filipino ones that everyone knows if they're Filipino. But I ended up just doing the one because I was quite limited to how much wall space I could have, obviously.
The other thing was like I saw how much like, because that looked like a skinnier pencil. It wasn't like one of your Copic, was it? It was like...
It was, but it was just blown up. So it just really took a lot.
It looked like time. It looked like a lot of time.
Yeah, it was. And I think I was working a lot at the time too, so it was a lot of just like one job to the next, with like sleep, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, doing that really brought back a lot of memories, not entirely specific ones, but just of a whole time, of a whole place. My godmother and her daughters, who we grew up with obviously, lived on a farm. We were there all the time, a lot of jumping castle parties, trampoline games. TFC, the Filipino channel, was always playing super, super loud in one room, and you could hear it all throughout the place. And some of the game shows had the Pamela One song in it. The Ocho Ocho, that became a big thing in our family. At our family gatherings of like 20 plus people, we had like one a month because there are so many of us at least. It just really took me back to all that, and it was really nice.
And revisiting it as kind of a place of joy, which I think is a motif that you've explored in this. I also had religious schooling, and there's one thing you really captured, and that's feeling of being a kid and walking into the church, and there's this kind of reverent, overly serious nature to the church, and you still have that kind of like restlessness and imagination as a kid, but you're kind of brought into these symbols, motifs, various like stained glass windows and things like that at that point you don't really understand, and they're all like these ambiguous blurs. What made you want to revisit this subject, and what did this series kind of bring back as you revisited it?
It's interesting, looking at past works that I made, they were a bit more focused on negative memories and experience that I had. This one, focusing on church upbringings and Catholic school upbringings, was less negative. I don't have many specific unfortunate memories, aside from just, unfortunately, just being bored in the churches.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm not religious anymore, but religion discussions just make me quite uncomfortable. So it's a little less about particular memories and kind of more just how the topic of it and the approach of it makes me feel. And I kind of wanted to challenge that and be able to, just look at all of this church content, all of this religious content. And I don't mean it to be like disrespectful or anything, but it's just I want to have fun with it and be able to
and it's
look at
super playful and like being able to turn. I think the notions of ceremony and things like that. Like you've got the Queen's wave, which isn't quite, but you're able to kind of use that. But also, it's a garlic. Yes,
it's a garlic. Yes, I have during lockdown. My housemates and I did some paintings just for fun. They did some Bob Ross paintings. One of my housemates at the time was is colorblind. So that was very fun to watch. But I did a painting of a garlic instead, and literally every single person who has ever seen it says, "I love the onion," and it's kind of just become a bit of a joke to the point where I don't know if people actually think it's an onion or if they just are following on because we're all in the same circles.
I feel like you have to send me a picture just so we can let the audience decide themselves.
We'll attach it over the sound bites. To be able to look back on church times and those Catholic school times, Catholic upbringing times as well, to be able to take things from it that I enjoyed. And because there are aspects of it that weren't all unfortunate. They weren't all they don't all make me uncomfortable. There's a lot of it that I love. Stained glass. Church architecture in general is just stunning. Baroque architecture is stunning. So I kind of wanted to bring that into this as well. And also I wanted them to not just be flat traditional drawings, which I've usually done. This is the first time I'm kind of not. They still look
Yeah.
flat, obviously. I know, I'm aware. But when you're here, it's not.
You get to see them in 3D. And
Yeah.
I think that leads to the next question, which is papercraft came in a big way for this series, and it's your first time using it. Is that something you want to continue using it?
Yeah, it really is. I had notes on my phone for a very long time about how I can make it less just traditional 2D drawing. I feel like that was quite heavily hammered on when I was in honours, that like it wasn't kind of indirectly stated, but what I kind of took from it was that traditional drawing and traditional approaches to drawing are kind of lesser art forms and not taken seriously, let alone successfully.
And I suppose using a medium like TEXTA as well, like
it doesn't help that argument.
Taken seriously by lecturers, and I get that, and like I think it's strange that like there is this like it has to be in a rubric of difference from like a drawing.
Actual papercraft, I suck at. I'm not good at it, but this So I was fortunate enough to work like as an artist assistant for Isabel and Alfredo Colazon. They make sculptures out of cardboard, literally recycled cardboard. And during that month and a half to 2 month period that I was working with them, it was just a whole lot of cutting, gluing, assembling cardboard sculptures, and that kind of really...
The practice got drilled into your...
the physicality and the joy of doing it. It was just an enjoyable time, and just the process of it was just really... I really enjoyed it, and also kind of just... kind of inspired like an approach to elevating drawing.
Beyond papercraft, this is the first time you've taken, it's not a square, like it doesn't have edges, you've given it arches, you've given it kind of form, and church architecture might have been like a starting point to think through that, but I think just like in a more general sense, like it does allow you to do unusual hangs, but also just kind of begin
it just changes
trying
kind of
unconventional pieces, and you can try little embellishments or motifs or things like that.
And I just love shapes, and I got to really explore, like I always kind of liked shapes, tessellating when we learned what tessellation was in school. Always loved it, but doing that cardboard work really allowed me to explore just how much I loved it, and this just lets me work with shapes a whole bunch. If you get like close-ups on that kind of thing, you'll like see it, even like these bits, and just like negative space, just a whole bunch of assemblage and composition approaches rather than just like cover drawing, which I mean is not a bad thing, but it's just fun to explore things differently to how I usually do. And the negatives of all these cutouts as well were I love them. They were stunning. I have them. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I love them. I feel like I've really learned a lot about my practice with these works as opposed to how they used to be or have been. But I've always known that the process of making works is sometimes the artwork rather than the end product, and sometimes it's the other way around. The process is irrelevant, but for some reason it's just never clicked that it could be both. So the entire process of making them is as important as the final works to me, which is something I've never focused on. The way I make my works usually isn't as important, because it's usually just drawing and colouring. But now so much of it is kind of based on, like why I do it is kind of based on why I do it. I guess.
It's more ordered and structured. And that is one more other thing. So in your practice, you say you'll do an outline version of it, and that's kind of just to plot out composition and aspects such as that. Or was this specifically for that show of you doing a black and white version effectively to work from?
No, so I've had ever since 2018, my honours year, when I started doing all these self-portrait works, before I start coloring them, I always would have like make a duplicate of the like line art. Kind of started as in case I ruin it.
Because it is an unforgiving medium. So
yes.
one bump of the arm or something like that, you're kind of like, you don't want to do. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, whereas with pencils before it was much more forgiving. But once I started into Texas, I was like, well... and sometimes you can like make it work and figure it out, and sometimes you think you can, and it's just garbage. So since 2018, since I started doing self-portraitures, I've always kind of kept all my line art. I still have all my line art from all the works I've done as well. So I think I've always wanted to do a colouring book since like 2018 anyway. So when you said that you had thoughts about it for this show, I was like, yeah, sure, because that's not too different to what I wanted to do at some point anyway, and also just the line art also is just very satisfying.
Yeah, well...
Let alone the functionality of like colouring books. Also now you can colour like shapes and not just me, you know?